Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. You know we love to dig into the latest scientific discoveries, and today we're looking at something pretty amazing, a potential game changer when it comes to aging and how our bodies heal.
Oh yeah, definitely a fascinating area.
So get this picture. You're getting older, right? We all are. And those little cuts and scrapes, they just don't seem to disappear as quickly as they used to.
Happens to the best of us.
Well, what if there was a way to, well, sort of rewind that process?
Sounds intriguing.
Right. So that's what we're going to explore today. We're diving into an article from Impact Journals LLC. It's called Breakthrough Drug Reverses Aging in Skin, Speeds Up Healing. It was just published on February 9th, 2025, and it suggests that this idea of reversing the effects of aging on healing might actually be possible.
It's incredible the progress is being made in this area.
Totally. And the article really focuses on these things called senescent cells. Have you heard of these before?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So I gotta admit, I was surprised to learn that these are basically like old dysfunctional cells just kind of hanging out in our tissues.
Yeah, they can cause all sorts of trouble.
Yeah, the article says they actually interfere with our natural healing processes.
Right, senescent cells are a huge focus of research right now. They're linked to a whole bunch of age-related problems, not just slow healing.
Wow, so it's like they're gumming up the works in multiple ways.
Exactly. And what's really interesting about this particular study is that they look specifically at how these cells are impacting wound healing in skin as we get older.
Makes sense since our skin is kind of on the front lines of aging, so to speak.
Right on the surface.
Okay, so the researchers found this drug called ABT 263 that seems to be able to clear out these senescent cells and as a result, speeds up healing. They tested it out on older mice by applying it directly to their skin.
That's a key point, that topical application.
Mm-hmm.
It's important because it means you can avoid a lot of the potential side effects that you might see with drugs that target senescent cells throughout the whole body.
Right, so it's like a more targeted approach.
Yeah.
So they applied this ABT 263 to the skin of these mice for 5 days, and then they created small wounds to see what would happen.
Kind of like a controlled experiment.
Yeah, exactly. And get this, by day 80% of the mice treated with this drug had completely healed wounds. Meanwhile, only 56% of the untreated mice were fully healed by that time. That's a pretty big difference, right?
It is significant, yeah. And there's another twist that I found really surprising. The drug actually caused a short burst of inflammation in the skin.
Wait, really? So inflammation can actually be a good thing?
Well, it sounds counterintuitive, right? We usually think of inflammation as a bad thing.
Exactly.
But turns out that a short-lived burst of inflammation can actually be beneficial when it comes to healing. It's kind of like a signal that alerts the body to an injury and kickstarts those repair mechanisms.
Huh, so it's like a call to action for the body's repair crew.
Precisely brings in the immune cells, gets them to clean up the area and release growth factors to help with tissue repair.
Fascinating. So without that initial inflammation, things would just move a lot slower.
Exactly. And to make things even more interesting, the study also found that ABT 263 increased the activity of certain genes that are involved in wound repair.
Like turning up the volume on those repair mechanisms.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're seeing this drug clearing out the bad stuff and then also giving a boost to the body's own repair systems. This is really cool stuff. I'm already thinking about the possibilities for wound care, especially for older adults.
Yeah, absolutely. This could be huge for things like post-surgical recovery and treating chronic wounds. It even raises the question of whether you could use this type of treatment to prepare the skin of older patients before they have surgery, kind of get things ready to heal quickly.
It's like giving their skin a head start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that could potentially lead to much better outcomes overall.
Wow, this is really exciting stuff. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I'm curious to learn more about how this drug actually works. What's going on at the cellular level?
So ABT 263 belongs to a class of drugs called senolytics. And these drugs are specifically designed to eliminate those senescent cells we were talking about.
So it's like a targeted attack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting about this drug is that it's one of the first senolytic drugs to be tested topically directly on the skin. Most of the research up to this point has focused on senolytics that work throughout the entire body.
I see. So this approach is more about delivering the drug directly to where it's needed most.
Right, to the tissues that need help with healing. And by doing that, you can hopefully minimize the risk of any unwanted side effects.
Makes sense. So how does it actually work? How does this drug take out those senescent cells?
Well, to really understand that, we need to delve a bit deeper into the biology of these cells. Essentially, ABT 263 targets certain proteins that are crucial for the survival of those senescent cells.
So it's like disrupting their lifeline.
Exactly. And by blocking these proteins, the drug basically forces those cells to die off.
Wow. It's pretty powerful stuff. But, we were talking about that inflammation earlier and how it can be a good thing in the short term. How do we know that it won't backfire?
It's a valid concern. You're right that chronic inflammation can be very damaging. It's linked to a whole host of health problems. But the type of inflammation we're talking about here is very different. It's a short-lived, localized response that's specifically designed to kickstart the healing process.
Okay, so it's like a controlled burn in a forest.
Exactly. It
Well-
clears out the deadwood and allows for new growth.
That's a helpful analogy. So in this case, ABT 263 seems to trigger this beneficial type of inflammation, which then helps to accelerate healing. What other insights did the researchers find?
Well, they discovered that the drug not only cleared out those senescent cells, but it also stimulated the activity of certain genes that are involved in wound repair.
Wait, are these the same genes that we talked about earlier, the ones involved in collagen production and blood vessel growth?
Yes, exactly. Those genes are crucial for the formation of new tissue and restoring healthy skin.
So it's like a double whammy. The drug is removing the roadblocks to healing, and at the same time, it's boosting the body's own repair mechanisms. This is incredibly exciting research, and I'm eager to see where it leads.
Me too. It has the potential to really change how we think about aging and wound care.
We've covered a lot of ground so far, but I want to shift gears for a moment and talk about the bigger picture here. What are the broader implications of this discovery?
I think one of the most exciting aspects is that it really highlights the potential of senolytics as a way to address the challenges of aging.
It's like we're on the verge of a new era in medicine, where we can potentially slow down or even reverse some of the negative effects of getting older.
It's a fascinating possibility. And it's important to remember that aging is complex. It's not just about our biology. Our lifestyle choices, our environment, our social connections, they all play a role.
So it's not just about living longer, but living better.
Exactly. The ultimate goal is to increase the number of years that we live in good health, free from chronic diseases and disabilities that often come with aging.
That's a goal I think we can all get behind. This research with ABT 263 is clearly a step in the right direction. What other avenues of research are scientists exploring in this field?
There's so much exciting work happening. Scientists are looking at everything from lifestyle interventions to gene therapies, all with the aim of extending both lifespan and health span. It's a truly fascinating field.
It sounds like we're on the cusp of some major breakthroughs.
I think so. And this research on ABT 263 and skin healing is a perfect example of the incredible progress that's being made. It's really remarkable what we're learning about the aging process and how we might be able to influence it. The possibilities are truly endless.
Well, on that note, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll dive deeper into some of the specific genes involved in skin repair and discuss the potential applications of this research. Stay with us.
Looking forward to it.
We're back, and we're still geeking out over this whole ABT 263 thing and its potential to totally change the game for wound healing, especially as we get older.
It's really remarkable research.
Before the break, we were talking about how ABT 263 actually boosts the activity of certain genes that are involved in wound repair. Can you tell us a little more about those specific genes? What are we talking about here?
Sure. So two of the key players that were really upregulated by this drug, collagen and VEGF. Now, collagen is like the building block of our skin.
Yeah.
It provides structure and strength.
Ah, so that's what keeps things firm and elastic.
Exactly. And as we get older, our bodies naturally produce less collagen, which is why our skin gets thinner and more fragile over time.
Makes sense. So boosting collagen production could help restore some of that youthful resilience.
Precisely. And then there's VEGF, which stands for vascular endothelial growth factor.
Catchy.
Right. It's essential for creating new blood vessels, a process called angiogenesis. And this is super important for wound healing because it brings all the good stuff, oxygen and nutrients, to the injured area so it can regenerate.
So it's like building new roads to get supplies to the construction site.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So see, ABT 263 is really hitting two birds with one stone here. It's clearing out those pesky senescent cells and then ramping up production of these essential building blocks for healthy skin.
It's like a 1-2 punch for aging skin.
Exactly. And what's really exciting is that this understanding of the specific genes involved opens up a whole new world of possibilities for even more targeted therapies down the road.
So we could potentially develop treatments that zero in on collagen production or angiogenesis to promote healing, even beyond wound care.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about the potential for treating things like skin ulcers, burns, even scarring. This research could have a massive impact.
This is all incredibly promising, but as you mentioned earlier, we still need more research, especially in humans. What are some of the big questions that still need to be answered?
Well, one of the biggest ones is whether the results we're seeing in mice will actually translate to humans.
Hmm.
Mice are great for preclinical studies, but their physiology is different from ours, so we can't just assume that what works for them will work the same way for us.
Right, it's like comparing apples and oranges sometimes.
Exactly. We also need to understand the long-term effects of using these senolytic drugs, like ABT 263. This study focused on a short-term application. So what happens when you use these drugs over longer periods? Are there any potential risks or side effects that we haven't seen yet?
Those are important questions. I imagine researchers will also be looking at the optimal dosage and treatment duration, to get the best results with the least risk.
Exactly. And another area that needs more research is the potential for personalized medicine. Could we use genetic testing to figure out which individuals are most likely to benefit from this type of treatment?
That's a fascinating idea, tailoring the treatment to each person's unique genetic makeup. It's like the future of healthcare.
It really is, and this deep dive has been so insightful. It really feels like we're on the verge of a new era in medicine where aging doesn't have to mean a decline in health and vitality.
It's exciting to think about the potential for senolytics to not just improve wound healing, but also address other age-related conditions. What other areas are showing promise?
Well, senolytics are being investigated for a wide range of age-related diseases. We're talking osteoarthritis, cardiovascular disease, Alzheimer's, even cancer.
Wow, that's a pretty impressive list. How could senolytics possibly work in all those different contexts?
The common thread is that in each of those conditions, senescent cells are playing a role in driving the disease process. For example, in osteoarthritis, they build up in the joints, causing inflammation and cartilage breakdown. In cardiovascular disease, they contribute to plaque formation in the arteries. And in Alzheimer's, they might be involved in the accumulation of those amyloid plaques in the brain.
So if we can eliminate those senescent cells, could we actually slow down or even reverse the progression of these diseases?
That's the hope. The research is still in its early stages, but the potential benefits are enormous.
It's really incredible to consider the possibilities. Are there any specific examples of senolytics being used in clinical trials for any of these conditions?
Yes, there are several clinical trials underway. One that looks particularly promising is using a combination of two senolytic drugs, dasatinib and quercetin, to treat idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. It's a really debilitating lung disease.
Oh, wow. And how are those trials going?
The early results are encouraging. The drug combination seems to be safe and well tolerated, and there are some indications that it might be slowing down the progression of the disease. But of course, more research is needed to confirm these findings.
It's inspiring to hear about these advancements. While we need to be cautious and acknowledge that we're still in the early stages of research, the potential for senolytics to transform healthcare is undeniable.
I completely agree. It's a truly exciting time to be involved in this field.
This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to the amazing research happening in the world of aging and regenerative medicine. It feels like we're on the cusp of a new era where aging might not necessarily mean a decline in health and vitality.
I agree. The progress being made is remarkable, and it gives us hope for a future where we can all live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives.
And for our listeners who are eager to learn more, we've included links to the original research article and other relevant resources in the show notes.
This field is constantly evolving, so stay curious and keep exploring.
Yeah.
Who knows what amazing discoveries are just around the corner?
Now let's get back to the specific implications of this research for wound care and surgery.
Sounds good to me.
So we've been talking about this incredible research on ABT 263 and how it could really revolutionize wound healing, especially as we get older. It really makes you think, how could this actually change the way we approach surgery in older patients?
Well, it's a great question. Right now, surgeons often face challenges when operating on older patients because their skin is just naturally more fragile and it takes longer to heal.
Right, it's just part of the aging process.
Exactly. And this can unfortunately lead to more complications after surgery, things like infections or just longer recovery times.
So using something like this ABT 263 topically, could we actually improve things for these patients?
That's definitely a possibility that needs to be explored further. Imagine if you could prep the skin with a senolytic treatment, kind of like priming it for healing before the surgery even begins.
Kind of like giving the skin a head start.
Exactly. It could potentially reduce the risk of complications and help people recover faster and more smoothly.
That would be amazing. But how would you actually deliver the treatment to the right spot, to make sure it's effective?
Well, that's where the topical application comes in. Researchers could develop special dressings or gels that contain ABT 263, and you could apply those directly to the surgical site a few days before the procedure.
Ah, so it's like a targeted approach to prepping the skin.
Precisely delivering the drug exactly where it needs to be.
It seems like this research could do more than just improve wound healing. It could actually open up new possibilities for surgery in older adults.
Absolutely. There might be procedures that were considered too risky in the past because of concerns about healing, but now they could become more viable.
That could really change people's lives.
It could allow older patients to get the treatments they need to improve their quality of life and overall well-being.
It's amazing to think about the ripple effects of this one discovery. Faster healing times, expanding access to surgery for older adults. It really shows how powerful scientific research can be.
It really highlights how even what might seem like a small discovery can lead to huge changes in the way we approach healthcare and ultimately improve lives.
This deep dive has been absolutely fascinating. We've learned so much about the incredible research happening in aging and regenerative medicine. It really feels like we're at the beginning of a new era where aging doesn't automatically have to mean declining health.
I completely agree. The progress being made is truly remarkable, and it offers hope for a future where we can all live longer, healthier, and more fulfilling lives.
And for our listeners who want to learn more, we've included links to the original research article and other resources in our show notes.
This is a field that's constantly evolving. So keep those questions coming and stay curious about the world of science. You never know what groundbreaking discoveries are just around the corner.
That's right. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the cutting edge of science and technology. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that's sure to blow your mind. Until then, keep exploring and keep asking questions.